Hello everyone, my name is 4AS and welcome to my channel. This is a series of video essays where I cover political, economic and revolutionary topics which are relevant to our time. I read the books so you don't have to. In a world where money rules the land, there is one critique that is left unspoken. Integrity leads to innovation. Innovation leads to inequity. Inequity leads to insanity. Join me as we explore the four eyes of capitalism. If this is your first time here, consider subscribing for more content in the future. If you haven't already, I would highly suggest watching the cooperatives and mutuals video first before watching this video essay. So, let's jump right in. Now, the last time when we talked about cooperatives, I mentioned the idea of community wealth building projects. I'm sure you're wondering, what exactly is a community wealth building project? Why haven't I heard of this before? Well, the short answer is the idea is a fairly new one when it comes to Australian politics. Local councils such as Bathurst and Inner West Sydney Council have only put proposals to their respective committees in 2022. But this is a well-established concept in Cleveland, Ohio, the Cleveland model, and the Preston model in the United Kingdom. But it begs the question, what are these economic models? Well, there's nothing like a concrete example, so I'll go into the Preston model. It's best to think of community wealth building projects like an onion. It's got layers. The project's biggest strength and way it is marketed is the economic factors. It's the idea of redistributing wealth back into the community. The project is described as a local economic development strategy focused on building collaborative, inclusive, sustainable, and democratically controlled local economies. Community wealth building supports democratic collective ownership of the local economy through a range of institutions and policies. These include worker cooperatives, community land trusts, community development financial institutions, so-called anchor institutions, procurement strategies, municipal and local public enterprises, and public and community banking. Now, there's a lot to unpack here, so I'll go for the easy concepts first. Much like economic democracy that we explained in the previous video, community wealth building focuses on democratic localism. Now, democratic localism is the focus of local and municipal initiatives which help the community battle inequality and decline. You know, when your local politician goes on about jobs and growth? Well, this is that strategy in action where cooperation is central to community involvement. How this is managed is the establishment of anchor institutions in the community, and from there, the local and municipal government works out a community wealth building strategy. For example, you have a local government who is in charge of the education and health system in the country. The local university and the local hospital are considered your anchor institutions. Why is this the case? Well, the argument is they are located in the community and as such hold the possibility of providing local jobs and the ability to redistribute wealth to the community. The common concern with leakage or extraction of wealth from a local economy through local government spending going to multinational companies for property schemes or outsourcing can be addressed in some areas by a strategic change to progressive procurement to create recirculatory local multipliers. In others, it may depend more on redirecting resources to establish local businesses and cooperatives, or gaining local land and assets for use by and for the community. This, in turn, will depend on a community's particular circumstances, resources, and priorities. By identifying anchor institutions, local governments can react to how they are spending their procurement budgets. Thus, If they find out the suppliers to the local hospital and university are all multinational companies, this would be considered a leakage from the local economy. Ultimately, the money to these multinational companies would be captured wherever the head office is, and that is not within the local community. By switching to a local supplier, whether that is a cooperative or a small to medium enterprise, that income would be redistributed back to the community. Thus, a multiplier effect. To those of you who don't know, a multiplier effect in this context would be that the local supplier and the staff would also spend money within the community, and on aggregate, income within the community would increase. Whilst community wealth building is far more complex than that, this is the business card of the whole process, the quick sell, if you will. Ultimately, projects like community wealth building are part of the anti-capitalism movement. Well, you know what capitalism is, but what is anti-capitalism? Anti-capitalists believe that while our capitalist and market economy does commit to the old liberal ideas of liberty, fraternity, and equality, they can be surface level. The harms nowadays vastly outweigh the benefits. What is important in critiquing the modern ideology and economy is taking up class concerns as well as moral concerns. Two general kinds of motivations are in play in these diverse forms of struggle within and over capitalism: class interests and moral values. You can oppose capitalism because it harms your own material interests, but also because it offends certain moral values that are important to you. Whilst this is a quick sketch as to how anti-capitalism thinks, this can show you the sort of mindset a project such as community wealth building leans into. Fundamentally, what needs to be focused on are three questions. How are you going to redistribute wealth? How are you going to fund the project? And how are you going to educate the community? When I've spoken before about community wealth building being a bottom-up structure, this is both true and untrue. Julian Manley, one of the main academics involved in the Preston model, described the project as a rhizomatic structure. The Preston model is a hodgepodge of more or less progressive ideas, none of them completely new, thrown into a cauldron of desire for proactive and positive change, where change once seemed impossible. It combines pragmatic approaches to wealth building, for example, by encouraging increased local spending by anchor institutions, with an enigmatic sense of wanting to live and work differently. A ribosome structure in this context is a structure that spreads without a traditional hierarchy. A cause and effect of the Preston model was the creation of cooperatives, where these businesses filled in the gaps to any suppliers that didn't end up being part of the progressive procurement strategy. The small to medium enterprises and cooperatives ended up creating a plural ownership environment, which was just as important to redistributing wealth. Having said that, before you can organically grow such a system, you need a buy-in from the community. For Preston, it was the establishment of its education programs, which would not only promote the ideas of CWB, but lead by example. To develop its strategy, Preston's City Council called on expertise from local, regional, and national partners, including the Centre for Local Economic Strategies, Cooperatives UK, and the University of Central Lancashire. In an important first step, in 2012, Preston City Council became the first living wage foundation accredited employer in the north of England, committing to pay all staff the living wage and encourage local institutions to do the same. As I have mentioned in a previous video essay, credit unions and people's banks would be open to investment from the community because these banking facilities were customer and community focused by their very nature. To take on predatory private loan shops, Preston City Council backed a citywide credit union, Clever Money, based in Blackpool, which has now grown to over 850 members. Future plans for Preston include a regional community bank as a customer owned cooperative charged with enabling local economic development. A bank of this type would support local SMEs and have the goal of reducing financial and social inequality at the heart of its mission. Overall, it would act as an enabler of community wealth building in Preston and beyond. Preston, in 2011, was in a dark place following the crash of the Titherbarn scheme, using traditional models of regeneration. In the space of 9 years, it completely turned around its prospects by recapturing the wealth of the community via progressive procurement, cooperatives, education institutions, and committing to a living wage. If you haven't already, like, share, and subscribe for more content in the future. And remember to keep thinking and keep learning. Goodbye till next time.